Hey guys, and thank you for coming to this week's author chat. We are chatting today with debut author Caroline Flarity and her book, The Ghost Hunter's Daughter. And I always, of course, have to state how much I love this cover. This cover is freaking amazing. I love this book. I am going to be promoting this book all throughout the year because I just loved it so much. So if you haven't checked this book out, you definitely need to.
Thanks, Jessica.
You're welcome. And you can actually win copies of this book on my website. The giveaway is up right now. So we're going to jump right into the questions. If you guys have questions, I've got all my social media on my phone here. So you can toss it anywhere that you want to, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and it will let me know that it is posted, or you can post it in the comments below and we will get your questions answered. All right. So thank you so much, Caroline, for coming back on. And I got to say, I love your shirt.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's so pretty. All right. So our first question, as always, is tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm a freelance writer. I live in New York City on the East Side, and I've written articles about entertainment and events here in town. And I also used to have a blog about the paranormal. But for my creative writing, I've always written exclusively in the genre of paranormal. So I started out writing short scripts, a couple of which were optioned, which was really exciting. And then I wrote a feature screenplay, which I entered into a contest circuit, and it did fairly well. So I chose to adapt that screenplay into my first novel, The Ghost Hunter's Daughter.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you did a paranormal blog.
Yeah, a while ago on Examiner. It's defunct now, but yeah, I did it for a couple of years, actually, 2-3 years.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it was. It was a great experience.
All right. Our next. Oh, I'm getting a little
Today, apparently. Okay. I think you have another window open.
Me?
Yeah. Do you have an extra window open? Because I'm getting a lot of feedback that usually doesn't happen unless there's an extra window.
Is that any better?
Still there a little bit, but we'll make do. Okay. Did you always want to be a writer?
You know, I did. And I remember being very young, like around 5 years old. My family, we lived overseas, so I didn't have access to TV. So I learned to read and write very young. And at about 5 years old, I have a vivid memory of filling this notebook full of stories about Snow White. And I remember it so vividly because I had this strong sense of like purpose and joy, and I was really in the flow, as writers say. So I think it's my calling to be a writer.
Well, after reading this, I can definitely say that is right, because this book was so good.
Thanks, Jessica.
Right. Now that you have published your first book, is it any easier to start a second?
Well, I'd already written about 200 pages of my second book before I published my first book. But I could see that it would be easier to start a second book because, of course, you have the experience behind you of writing a completed novel. But I could also see that it would be challenging because your head is so full of your first book and, you know, the reception it's received, and jumping right into a second book could be difficult. Writers do it all the time, but I'm not in that situation since I have so much of my second book already written. I can just kind of slip back into it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Did you have a favorite author growing up?
Yeah, I remember that the first book I read that completely blew me away by the level of writing talent was Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible. But as far as my favorite writer, I have to say it's Stephen King. I started reading him, again, very young, probably too young. I remember I was under 10 when I first picked up one of his short story collections, and I read this short story called The Boogeyman, which terrified me And I remember my heart was beating out of my chest, and I just didn't even know what to do with myself. I was so scared, but I kept coming back for more. So
You sound like my 14-year-old that she loves all the horror movies and stuff, and
really,
is just so addicted to it. It's insane. It's like I would have been the one where I'm gonna go watch a scary movie, I'm gonna go home, and then I'm going to turn on every single light in the house and sleep with like a blanket over my head so I can't see the light.
I slept with my light on until I was in my 20s.
I don't blame you, because I know that previous with us talking, you said that you lived alone, and it's like, see, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that, reading or writing horror movies and books and stuff, because I would be so scared of every little noise and everything would just freak me out so bad.
It's funny. I feel really safe in my apartment. That's why I guess I don't get scared. I mean, sometimes I do, but for the most part, I feel safe.
That's good though.
It is.
Good energy.
Yes, good vibes.
You said that your next book was going to be for adults. Do you think you'll ever come back to YA or do another age group?
I'd love to come back to YA. Right now, I'm writing an adult psychological thriller with a sci-fi element, but I do want to come back and write a sequel to The Ghost Hunter's Daughter.
Yay!
I hope to be able to do so. It just really depends on how the book is received.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. Fingers crossed.
So many fingers crossed. What have you been reading recently?
Well, I'm reading right now A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. I thought I would be done with it by now, but I'm kind of savoring it. Stephen King actually wrote on the cover of this book that it scared the living hell out of him, and he doesn't.
Oh, wow.
So I was prepared, but still, it's a very psychologically unsettling experience reading this book. So of course I like it. I'm enjoying it. Also recently I read Jasmine Ward's Sing Unburied Sing, which is a beautiful book. It has a very highbrow literary structure, yet there's a supernatural element weaved in, which I really enjoyed as well.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Okay. Why did you choose not to have romance in the forefront of The Ghost Hunter's Daughter?
Good question. Well, I knew that I wanted to write the story of a metaphysical coming of age of a teenage girl. So I wanted the focus to be pretty squarely on her. But having said that, there is a romantic element in the book. In fact, Anna has two romantic interests. The first one is a cautionary tale, a bad romance, if you will. And the second one I'm not going to give away because it's a spoiler. But there is romance.
Hey, I actually really kind of liked that, the romance wasn't, like in your face type thing, because a lot of YA does that. So it was really kind of nice that yours didn't.
Oh, good.
Be something kind of nice to, if you do a book too, kind of weave it in there a little bit more.
Definitely.
Like like the contrasting.
Yes, I know what you're saying. Absolutely. Yeah. That's the plan.
Woo. What can you tell us about your main character, Anna?
Okay, Anna. Well, this is a very dark book. So it's a dark paranormal mystery, YA. And Anna's world is very dark. And unfortunately for her, it gets darker before it gets better. But as the book opens, she's 16 years old, and she's still grieving the loss of her mother and very traumatized by it. 8 years previous, her mother was possessed by a demon and died. And Anna witnessed that event. So she's upset about that, of course, and she's also angry. She's angry because her father has become a paranormal investigator, and dealing with spirits is his normal everyday, but he's been unable to contact her mother's soul in the afterlife. And Anna has been tormented for years now with thoughts of her mother still being enslaved by this demon in some kind of hellish realm. And her father had promised her that he would make sure her mother's soul was at peace, but he's broken that promise. And not only that, but he's just completely given up trying. So she's very angry about that. And then she goes to school and she's bullied at school because her father is, the town weirdo, this ghost hunter. And when she gets home, she doesn't find any peace there because of her father's own grief. He's developed this out of control kind of hoarding problem. So instead of relying on her two best friends, Freddy and Dor, for solace, she's escaping into this infatuation she has with this boy at school who, as I mentioned earlier, is bad news. So that's kind of the setup.
So you stated that part of the story of the ghost hunter's daughter is about Anna's father being a hoarder. Why did you decide to add that aspect to the story?
Well, I did a lot of research on hoarding, and I think it's such an outward manifestation of inward pain. And I thought it would add a lot to the story because it's, you can describe it in so many ways, and it causes so many issues for the people, or not only for the hoarder, but for the people who live with the hoarder. So it's also just a subject I'm interested in as well. I've done a lot of research on it.
All right. So are you saying that you did way more research on that one, I'm guessing, versus the paranormal aspect, since you have dealt with that in the past? So that's actually kind of nice. It gave the book a lot of something new. So it was really kind of nice to have something, with the parents, because a lot of time in YA, the parents are there, but they're just kind of in the background. And in this, Anna's dad is, actually there. He's kind of crazy, but he's there.
Yeah, and I have a lot of empathy for Jack. I really do. So I did do a lot of research on hoarding, and I also did a lot of research about a certain structure that comes into play in the back of at the end of the book, which I don't want to give away because it's a spoiler. But as you were saying, the paranormal and the supernatural elements, I really didn't have to research them specifically for the book because I've been researching them on my own for many years, whether it's hauntings, near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, psychic phenomena, reincarnation. I've been interested in all of it and researched it for a long time now.
Love it. All right. And we have one other question. If you were going to write another book set in the paranormal field, what would you write about? And it couldn't be demons or ghosts. It had to be something else.
Something other than demons and ghosts. Oh, wow, that's a good question. I'm really interested in, I believe that consciousness extends past the body. So that we have a spirit, that we're a soul. So we're not humans having spiritual experiences. We're spirits having human experiences. So I think the whole idea of reincarnation in past lives is something that I may touch upon a little bit in this book, but I think I'd like to write more about that and explore that in another novel.
Ooh, I could totally help you with that one.
Yeah? Oh, we have to talk.
Oh yeah. We'll have to chat later. All right. Well, that is all of our questions for today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I really appreciate you having me.
If you guys have any more questions for Caroline Flarity, you can find her on all social media because I talked her into getting it. And you can also add questions to the comments below, and I am sure she can come back and fill them out. And of course, you can win a copy of The Ghost Hunter's Daughter, so make sure to check that out on the site. And we do not have any more author chats until the beginning of July. So if your favorite author, if you want them on the show, please tweet out to them and give them the information that is on the site and send them our way. Bye.
Bye, Jessica.